people of the earth, time for another FiddleHed fiddle lesson. Today we're going to learn about plucking, or as it's known in Italiano, Pizzicato. You want to do some pizzicato when you eat the pizza. My Italian friends love that joke. There's two main reasons why I think you should do plucking as a practice technique. The first is, it's a great way to practice something that's technically very difficult, because you take away the bowing, which is a whole other world of difficulty, and then you can really focus on the left hand. I think for most people, plucking tends to be a little easier. Just in case you haven't learned it, I'm going to just go over how the basics of how to do like a kind of standard or classical plucking, like the form and everything. So basically you would put your thumb on the side of the fingerboard like that, your right thumb, resting it against the side, and then go ahead and try plucking the strings, the open strings. Try little patterns like tucka. You can let the string ring out. And then another technique is to try dampening it. Okay, so I suggest pausing the video and just playing around with plucking a lot, doing some scales. All right, just get used to it. All right, pause and do that. Do 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 do. Okay, enough. You're back. Thanks for doing that. It's gonna pay off that you just did that. So don't try to cheat and not do what I just suggested, because you're gonna find out soon. And no, forget it. Now let's see. Let's do this. So say you're playing a tune and it's hard, and you get to a hard part. Let's say you're doing Arkansas Traveler, the B part. And darn it, that second quarter is really difficult. You just can't seem to get it. So you set down your bow in your lap, or maybe on the table, or on the case, and you just pluck. And so you go and maybe you try to pluck the whole thing, or maybe you know the exact treble spot and you go to the treble spot. So in this case, the second quarter. And maybe you find one particular part of it is hard, so you hit up that. That's what's hard. Ah, got it now. So it's like you're being your own teacher. You're going along, you find something difficult, you zone in on it, and you make an exercise out of it. And then what do? You loop it until kingdom come. You play that thing over and over again, looping it. And I think it's fun. I try to convey my joy of looping to my students. So let's do that right now. So you could pause and practice that even more if you like. I'm not sure you really need help with that particular part of the tune, but I'm just trying to illustrate that's what you do with this technique. You use plucking to work out the left hand difficulties. And then you use looping, which is one of the other main practice things I try to teach, to get the flow of it, to get a feeling of play with it. So you're just playing and you're not thinking anymore, you're just playing. All right, and then once you've gotten that, as you just did with that one little part, then you insert it into its bigger part, which would be the whole second quarter. So now try to do the whole second quarter with plucking. And maybe that's hard, so you have to do less. Maybe you just have to do. And then you do that a few times. Always ask yourself, am I able to do this? Am I able to play with flow and ease? And if not, really try to simplify it. find the perfect little thing to practice. Maybe practice it like a singular time, a few times, and then if you can find a way to loop it, it's a magical practice. It's magic, believe me. All right, and now you've worked out the tune. Now you can play the whole B part with plucking. It's starting to feel okay with the left hand. Then you pick up your bow and do it. Now another idea might be, if you want to continue working on the second quarter, which was hard, you can pluck it once and then just stay on the second quarter, bow it. Now pluck it again. I think that's another great idea for practice, all right? And just remember that these fiddle tunes you're learning, you can learn everything you need to know about fiddling if you go deep into them. You know, they'll have all these little things in there, and if you can find a way to create exercises and write your own exercise book, then you can become an amazing fiddler just by playing some simple fiddle tunes. Depends on how far you take it. All right, now let's move on. The other main reason why you'd want to pluck or do pizzicato on a tune is that it will help you remember tunes. Because basically you're playing, when you play a tune in a different way, your brain remembers it in a different way, and it creates more links in your mind, in your brain. You know, so when plucking is just a slightly different way of hearing the tune. So we could use the same example. Let's use a different example. Let's use another tune I do a lot, like Kesh Jig, you know. So if you're trying to remember something, you pluck it then. And then it really will help you remember it a lot. Some other things that you can do to help you remember a tune while we're at it would be transposing. So you could take Kesh Jig, and where it normally starts on D3, and start on G3. I have lessons all on transposing. I just want to compare, like, as a memory technique, like plucking and transposing are two really good ones. Finally, the last thing I'll offer you is another way to pluck that a classical teacher would probably whip me if they saw this, but is you play it as a guitar and use your thumb. I rest my fingers here. I pluck somewhere here. It works for plucking. If you were to bow here, it would sound funny. If you were to use the bow, it sounds muffly versus here. But for plucking, it works fine. All right, and then you can do the same sort of things. And one kind of cool thing about doing guitar position is that you could play mandolin chords and learn a lot about double stops. So if you looked up mandolin chords, and I'm not going to go into the chord playing because I'm working on a whole series of lessons on chords right now, so I'm not going to really talk about it, but you could start by just, you know, playing two notes at once or strumming all of it. If you ever play electric violin, then you can actually, this would be heard. If you're playing in a band, acoustic band, that would be hard pressed to hear this. But it's fun. I suggest playing around with it. Try out both things, see what works for you. And finally, the final plucking thing that I'll give you is less of a practice idea and more of it's a little bit more advanced. But there's a way. Say and sometimes you may encounter situations where you want to pluck for a little bit and then play again. There's a way that you can do that quickly without setting down your bow or something. So what you would do is you would roll the bow into your right hand. So say I wanted to go, I'm not even that good at this. So there's two ways to kind of mix playing and plucking. The first is to roll the bow into your fist like that. So you have the bow, regular bow hold, you roll it in, grab it, thumb plants here, and pluck. And you can practice just that. Okay, there's a second way to do this, which it's easier to start with it, but a little harder to do. But basically, instead of rolling it in, you just bring the bow up and pluck kind of with your first. This might be a little easier. I should have showed you this first, sorry. But it offers less stability than the rolled in bow. But this may be the best thing for just kind of a quick pluck in something. Which again is, you don't really encounter that much in fiddle music, in classical playing, or maybe in some kind of fancier like trick fiddling things or whatever. You hear it, or even in some old time music you hear the plucking, and I think they're just doing it that way. I don't think they're doing the bow roll. I think they're just kind of holding it and plucking with their index hanging off like that. There you go, plucking, aka pizzicato, pizzicato. Ah, with the pizza. Enough with the pizzicato. All right. Hey, that was a fun lesson. I'll see you next time. So long.
Thanks for watching the video plucking.
Excellent.